We are here for the second session on the second theme, social inclusion and social justice in the BRICS. We will have 5 presentations, 2 colleagues from Brazil, 1 colleague from Russia, another one from South Africa, another one from India, and another one from China. Each of them, they will have 15 minutes. And after all presentations, we'll have a debate. So we start with Maria Paula Gomes dos Santos from the Applied Economic Institute, Research Institute. Maria Paula, please.
Hello, good morning everyone. Well, I'm doing a comparative study on social protection among the BRICS. So this is the first step of my research, and it's a comparison between Brazil and South Africa. Okay, so let's go. What I am comparing, the object of my comparison is the income security systems. What we call income security systems are that part of social protection systems that provide monetary benefits for people who cannot work or whose incomes are lower than necessary to live on. Okay, so is that part that benefits on pensions, retirement pensions, dependent pensions, or social grants. They can be contributory or non-contributory, okay? And I'm doing a comparative perspective as spoken by Przeworski and Thorne in a book in 1971, that he says the most similar systems. So I'm starting from similarities between Brazil and South Africa and trying to explain some differences in their income security systems, okay? Okay, Brazil and South Africa have some similarities, like they both are middle income emerging countries, okay? And they have had a consistent, though not very high, growth in the last 20 years, about 3.5 each one. They say they have more or less the same values of GNP per capita. It's 11 PPP dollars per capita, which is more or less the same. They have similar shares of productive sectors. I mean, industry, agriculture, and similar shares on their composition of their GNP. They have this more or less the same path dependence, a colonial past, both slavery and exclusionary, forgive me, there's Nell missing over there, exclusionary capitalist development, okay? They have high social inequalities as taken by the Gini index, and they have high spending in social assistance. South Africa about 3.5%, and Brazil in social assistance you have 1.5%, but for the overall social expenditure in Brazil is about 15% of the GDP. Okay, so here you have some figures that you can check what I've said before. I will pass through just because I'm talking. So the growth of the GDPs, okay, green is South Africa, Brazil is blue. And then there's the growth rates, okay? Very similar trajectories. So the difference in the income security systems. The people benefited by non-contributor benefits in South Africa are much larger, much bigger than Brazil. The extent of the population covered by private pension schemes in South Africa is much bigger than it is in Brazil. And the absolute absence in South Africa of a mandatory statutory national social security arrangement. I mean, in terms of protecting workers in retirement or their dependents. South Africa relies mostly on private pension schemes. So here you have the social security, the income security schemes for both countries. So in both countries, you have unemployment insurance. In Brazil, it covers 4% of the population, while in South Africa, it covers 0.4%, okay? And in South Africa, you have another kind of mandatory statutory social security device, that it's the compensation fund for workers injured at work, okay? It covers the work accidents and occupational disease, as the Social Security in Brazil does it, okay? We have it. And as you see, there's no mandatory public Social Security scheme in South Africa. Here we cover part of the, part of what's covered here, but here we have 0.45 of coverage, while here we have potentially 70% of the population, of the active population, covered by Social Security, while 12.5 it's paid. It was the amount paid in December 2010. Okay, so. And then retirement and private, we cover 1.6 of the population, while South Africa, 11.7. This, well, here you have the non-contributory income system, okay? So, while in Brazil we cover 8.83%, in South Africa it's almost 5%. Disability grant, here, 1%, by 2.5%. Here we have these set benefits are very similar. The eligibility for them is very similar. They are means tested, and they are for people above 60 or 65. And here we have the family grant. In South Africa, you have the child support grant. The difference between these grants is that this covers the whole family, and the family is not required to have a child to receive it, okay? It just has to comply with the income shelf. So. But the child support grant follows the children, all right? So each children can receive one grant. And we have other kinds here, the foster care grant, who's quite large. In Brazil, this is just the residue of this old age pension from the past. So it's still being paid, but it's kind of... So we have 35% of the population covered by non-contributory income security devices, while South Africa have 30%. It's more or less similar. Though results on poverty and inequalities reduction are very different. Brazil has succeeded in much more in reducing the Gini index than South Africa. The same with poverty, okay? We've been reducing poverty in a very important way, while in South Africa, the numbers are not very sure, controversial, and but then, well, that's this. So my hypothesis was, in seeing that in developing countries undergoing economic growth, poverty and inequalities can be faster and more significantly reduced if these countries count on broad public and mandatory social security arrangements. However, when we decompose, and I didn't do this decomposition by myself, but I relied on other colleagues, both from Brazil and South Africa, the decomposition of of the contribution of each income source to reduction of poverty and inequality. And to Brazil, labor was quite important. Wow. As you see, both for income increase and inequality reduction, although Social Security was important as well, okay, around 20%. Finally, so labor, altogether with labor, Social Security benefits are indexed to the minimum wage. So the floor of the social protection is the minimum wage. That is why the increase of the minimum wage, the high increase in the last years, especially from 1995 to now, made the protection floor much more tough, much more robust, okay? And the increase of the minimum wage led to the increase of the general income and to reduction of poverty and inequalities. While in South Africa, work is also very important for the households, as well its participation in aggregate income, as well and in the Gini, okay? The Gini in South Africa is 66 at this point, and labor work contributes 0.56, so it's quite important. However, in South Africa, access to labor and the inequality of wages are enormous, okay? So there's a very bad integration of people, especially the African part of the people. So I cannot explain everything about South Africa in these 50 minutes, but then the idea is that there was no integration in labor market for those who, after the apartheid. So it made that the work is still important in the composition of income sources, but it was not extended as much as it was